I don't need to be recording otherwise or anything, do I?
No, for the
Okay.
live shows, we just kind of take the audio and moving on over.
Awesome.
All right, so we should be live. So hello and welcome to the RPG Academy podcast. I am Michael, and tonight I have with me the GM normally of the Shadow of the Cabal podcast, that is Mr. Tanner Clausen. Tanner, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. It's been a while since we've been on a live show together.
It has. The way our release schedule works, which it means it doesn't work, that we might have had an episode recently that has come out with us on it, but we didn't record it for a long time, so it's been sitting there.
Yeah.
So I released an episode yesterday, though I screwed it up and had to redo it today. But that episode is like 6 months old. Like I've been waiting forever for this episode to come out because I was very excited about it. I think it's a great episode, but it's been so long. It's sad.
Yeah. Has a faculty meeting 125 won any Ennies yet? Did we beat Ken and Robin talk about stuff finally?
Not that I know of. Based on the last couple of years, we should get the Ennie nomination finalist the first week of July. So we're only maybe a week to 10 days out from finding out if there's a chance we will once again lose to Ken and Robin talk about stuff. So welcome, New York Tater. Thank you for joining us as always. Hopefully we'll have a few other people jump in. Before we get too far into the show and we start taking questions, if there are any, a couple quick announcements. I will remind everyone, as always, that we still have our Twitch follower drive contest thingy going on, that once we get to 500 Twitch followers, I'm going to give away a copy of the D&D Rule Cyclopedia from the print-on-demand drive-through RPG. I think last time I checked, we were like 280. When I started this, we were at 240. So, hey, progress, right? Yay.
Yeah.
So we're moving in the right direction. And then I also got this today, Tales from the Yawning Portal. So I'm on the review copy list for WotC, but for some reason they haven't sent me the modules. I just get the resource books. So I never had this. Or if I did have it, I may have got it and then given away to the Catagon. That's certainly possible. But I didn't remember having it. And I've decided that I'm going to run my kids through the Sunless Citadel.
Nice. That's a good one.
I've heard it's a really good one, and they've really been bugging me to play again. Like we played once, kind of fell off. Like I was just making stuff up as we went, which I always do anyways. But it's weird when you got kids. I find it's much harder for me to just make stuff up on the fly when I'm dealing with a 7 and 8 year old, because I can't go to my go-to, which is like awful evil stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot more like sort of cat herding going on in between, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely there is. So I was looking around for a good module, and I kind of wanted to run a dungeon crawl anyways. So someone said the Sunless Citadel would be the one to go to. So I got that. So hopefully, I don't have any plans to record it, but I probably will have things to talk about with it soon.
Yeah, awesome.
What about you? What's new and exciting in the world of Tanner?
We are in Shadow of the Cabal. Dakota has decided to step up and give me a much needed break from GMing after we finished our first campaign, and he is running Knights Black Agents Blood Money for us, and it's doing very well, and I'm very proud of it. It's something a lot different than what we've run before. It's modern day, and we touch on some touchy things, but I think that we pull it off well, and it's an exciting vampire spy thriller heist series. So if you're interested in that, it sounds cool, go check it out. That's what's going on with the podcast right now. Other than that, I just learned like this past week. Are you familiar with the 200-word RPG contest?
Yes. Andrew Young, who's on the Lawful and Orderly podcast, also a member of the faculty, he's entered that several years. I think he's had some success with that as well.
Yeah. So I just realized that my entry, I should say, my one entry was placed to be a finalist. So if you guys don't know about it, it is a challenge where you have to write an RPG in 200 words, plain text, which is very hard.
Oh.
And yeah, a lot of those are, in my opinion, some of them stretch what the definition of an RPG is, but they do accept anything. And out of like 800 plus entries, mine is in like the top 70 or so. And so I think at this point, they've basically filtered through all the ones, and these are the ones that are being passed upon to the individual judges to read and recognize. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I don't want to say which one mine is because I don't know who listens to this, and some of them might be judges or something like that.
Gotcha.
So I don't want to say which one mine is, but if you look at the finalists, you can definitely look it up and find mine if you search through them. So yeah.
Fun fact, frenemy of the show, Jim McClure, is one of the judges for that contest. So if he has any pull, you will lose because you're part of the network.
That's true. That's true. He faved my tweet talking about it, and I wanted to be like, Jim, don't look. It's fine. I will say there is one in there that is about samurai at court trying to ferret out a conspiracy. That one is not mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if that's the one that you think is mine, it's not.
It's not. Awesome. All right. So again, the idea tonight is we're going to do sort of a Q&A. If anyone in chat has anything they want to talk about, RPG stuff is certainly awesome, but it's not required. We can talk about anything that's on your mind. We may not cover it, so just understand there is a chance if there's a question we just don't want to cover. We won't, and we can't guarantee that you're going to like our answer or agree with us. So if we get into a topic that we're going to have to agree to disagree, we're probably just going to move on. And always be nice. We have a pretty small community still, and everyone that shows up, I pretty much know them pretty well. I probably played games with most of them. But if you're new or you're just in a bad mood and you're being a jerk, we're not going to pay attention to you, and we'll probably boot you. Not that I think we have to do that, but as we continue to grow, we get new people, and I just want to reinforce that we are a very positive, inclusive, focused show, and everyone has to be nice to each other.
Exactly.
All right, so I'll throw it out to chat. If you have any questions, please let us know. I'm filtering chat. I don't know if Tanner, you also see it. I have YouTube and Twitch up, so I can see both.
I just have Twitch up, so I'll keep an eye on that.
All right. And then while we're waiting, I know you have some prompts ready. Do you have a quick one we can get into?
Sure. Yeah. This is one that doesn't always come up, but it comes up once in a while, and it interests me to read people's answers every time it's asked. So do you ever, this is one I stole from Reddit. I don't know whose username posted it, so I'm sorry. But do you ever use books from different systems in your games, like as a resource for a game that you're running? So like, for example, I like to, whenever I'm like playing in a new genre or something, I will go and find the GURPS book for that genre. I don't like GURPS as a system at all, but those books are awesome guidebooks on how to run this thing in tabletop, and they're just great to mine for ideas, and they're just good research material. So do you have anything like that, or any stuff that you kind of cross-reference across systems?
Sort of. I'll interject quickly. We've actually got a bunch of questions that are flying in the chat.
Wow. Okay, cool.
So we will get to all of them as best I can. I'll filter back through them, so if anyone's asking, don't worry, we will circle back to that. Sort of. I've talked about this before. I've stolen a lot of ideas, themes, mechanics from other games that I brought into what I call D&D, though at this point it may not be recognizable as D&D at this point.
It's Michael's D&D.
It's Michael's D&D, which is totally cool, and it's awesome.
Yep.
But I can't think of any times where I've said, okay, I'm running a sci-fi type game, let me find a resource of a sci-fi RPG and bring in. I probably have, but I'm not thinking of it. Now, I'm always looking at movies and books and TV and for inspiration for like an idea, setting a character, a plot, or something like that. But I can't think of any specific example where I took like a resource guide from a different setting to bring into a game. But I have brought mechanics from other games.
Gotcha. Yeah, and sometimes that's half the battle too. Like especially if you play in sort of like the D20 ecosystem, there's a lot of games that each have their own like interesting twist on what D&D is, like Shadow of the Demon Lord or 13th Age or what have you. Like they each have little nuggets that, maybe even if that's not the game that you're going to invest in, you can at least read the book, buy the book, and take that idea of like the escalation die or the initiative system and bring those into your own D&D game to make your own witch's brew like everybody does.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and if you're not doing that, great. If you are doing that, great. That's how it works. Awesome. All right, so we'll hit the first question here. It's from New York Tater. What was the biggest surprise from our first podcast release? I'm going to assume that's the first episode. So any surprises from you, Tanner, on the first episode when you actually released it, like your child, the birdie out of the nest?
We had okay, so I'll have two. One, we had like over like 100 people listen to it in like within a day or two, which blew my mind. I think there was a thirst for some Rokugan content. And so that was a success to me. And obviously we've exceeded that and we're still growing, and that's still awesome. the other thing is like how bad I thought that first adventure was that I did. Like I ran a mystery for our first session that was our episodes 1 and 2 of Shadow of the Cabal, and then later in Shadow of the Cabal, which ended up turning into like episode 30 or something or 40 something, I ran another mystery, and like listening to them back to back, and I've had people tell me this too, it's like they're just night and day, like how much you can learn from just recording every single week and getting better at that kind of stuff. So I'm surprised that for an adventure that was so mediocre, we got a lot of buzz early on. So that was cool for me.
Yeah, and I've said this before, like when you're playing like a D&D actual play, you're fighting for a bigger audience, but there's so much out there that you have to get lucky, be really good, a little bit of both to get notice and have a foothold and hold on to it. Where other systems, your possible audience are so much smaller, but they're looking for content. You know,
right.
There's very few people are actively looking for another D&D podcast anymore. Like they might happen upon one, but very few people are like, you know what, I want another one of those. So you've got to get your stuff in front of someone and hope that they listen and then hope that they grasp onto it. But you post, hey, we got a new Blades in the Dark RPG or a Fate Core RPG. You're going to have a lot of people like, oh, I've been looking for that.
Right. Or I want to play that and I want to see how it sounds in play, which some games are good at explaining in the books and some aren't. So like it's good to hear people play it a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you? What about early podcast memories or?
Well, it's somewhat similar to you. I was surprised that anyone at all listened to our early shows. Again, we had no concept of what was good and really we still don't. But, I think like our first couple episodes had like 40 or 50, listeners, which again, for a D&D podcast was great. And I mentioned this before, but I think probably the biggest surprise, which was more of a surprise to Evan than me, is when we started releasing our actual play, how much more downloads that got.
Yep.
And there's an episode, because I fairly recently went back and listened to all of our old faculty meetings, dungeon talk, table topic episodes, just kind of reliving some nostalgia and just seeing how the podcast has changed. It's just kind of a fun little thing I did. And there's an episode where Evan and I are talking about it. He's like, I don't understand. Why would anyone want to listen to us play the game? I'm like, clearly they do. Because, we were getting 2 and 3 times as many downloads on Made Men, which the audio was terrible, versus our very good quality sounding, well edited discussion shows. And it's just,
that's kind of like, I don't know if this is the correct history, but this is the history that I choose to believe. So it's right in my mind. I think actual plays exploded after the video gaming Let's Play sort of style came out. Because I remember, because I was watching YouTube and like video gaming videos in like 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. And like around like 2012, 2013, like people realized that you could get insane numbers of views on YouTube of just people watching you play video games if you're entertaining. And I think like the actual play movement, to me, it feels like, there was definitely stuff before that, no doubt, but to me, it feels like it really kind of got some momentum around the same time. So I think there's just this sort of cultural understanding that it's enjoyable to sort of be a voyeur or feel like you're one of the guys or girls playing along in the game. And a lot of people like me, I listened to them when I didn't have a regular group or a regular game going. So like it's a good way to experience that kind of stuff vicariously. I think it's sort of the same thing for YouTube videos almost.
Yeah, I think sometime in the future, there's probably already some of it, but I'm thinking there will be studies done and books written and papers published about the psychology of actual play and how it's affecting the gaming scene right now. Again, it's exploding and there's all kinds of very positive things and a few naysayers who are asshats. But I think it's an interesting thing. I think there's... So for podcasting specifically, because I started listening to podcasts because of our show, but I've now branched in. I listen to a bunch of other non-RPG related podcasts, movies, and just pop culture and Westworld and Game of Thrones. And I find this very interesting sort of relationship that I build with the people that I listen to. It's like I'm in their room or their car or the dorm room or whatever, and we're having this conversation. And we have hundreds of hours of conversations. Right. I feel like I know these people.
And then you meet them and you're like, oh no.
And then you meet them and you're like, you have no idea who I am. And to a small extent, I've had the opposite of that. Going to Gen Con and Origins, I've had people who I've met who've listened to our show for years, and they know probably more about me than my wife does in some way, And it's like
Yeah.
it's just sort of a weird thing, and I think that's something to do with. I think that's part of the psychology as well. Is that I can watch a movie. I think The Rock or Vin Diesel or Chris Evans, whatever. It's cool to watch them. They're really good at what they do, but they are so far removed from my
Right.
reality. Where when you listen to an actual play, you could play with these people very
Right.
easily, and
It
I think
feels
it's different.
yeah, it feels like watching somebody through a window versus being in the same room as them. That's sort of the vibe I get.
I would agree as well.
Yeah.
So New York Taylor, thank you for the question. We'll move on to the next question, which is from Short Manian 444. I think this is an interesting question. If you could turn any board game, movie, or book into an RPG setting, what would it be?
That's a good one. Geez. I'm going to go with board game on this one, and I'm going to go. Well, my favorite board game, what I consider to be the best board game of all time, is Eldritch Horror,
Okay.
but it's basically just Call of Cthulhu.
It's okay that you're wrong about that.
Sure. Okay, Michael. Tell me more about Descent when it came out 45 years ago, or whatever you're into. No. No, I do play a lot of board games when I get the chance to, and this is going to be sort of a cheater answer, though. I think the XCOM board game is really, really good, and I mean it's based on the video game XCOM. Are you familiar with XCOM at all?
Vaguely, I've never played the video game or the board game, but I'm on Twitter enough to see other people talking about it that I kind of know about it.
Yeah, it's basically like a squad-based like tactics game that has a grand strategy layer of aliens are invading Earth and you are the last resistance against them. It's really simple setup, but like the structure, like the gameplay loop of like mission and then going back to base, trying to decompress, trying to get your soldiers unstressed. You only have $35 in the budget and you have $50 worth of bills. And if you don't make Africa or China happy, they're going to leave the program and take all their funding. Like all that stuff is perfectly set up for a game. Like I want to see a Blades in the Dark hack for XCOM because it follows totally that same structure of mission, downtime and recuperation, mission, downtime and recuperation. So I still haven't, and I've looked and I've done my research. I haven't seen any games that would really do XCOM super well, but I think Blades could, but I want somebody smarter than me to make it.
So we recently did a film studies where we talked about my love for the movie Clue. So I think the easy answer would be to turn the board game Clue into an RPG setting, but that would be a very thin book. So I'm going to go with His Dark Materials. Have you ever read that book series?
No, I might have read the first. That's like The Knife of Never Letting Go and Golden Compass, right?
The Golden Compass is the first one, and you got like the
or the Subtle Knife, yeah,
Polar Bear, and I like those books they're considered YA books, but they deeply affected me. I read all of them, and it has one of the most bittersweet endings of a trilogy I've ever had. I was like moved by this, and I just think there's a lot of fodder for some of the concepts they talk about there. You have anthropomorphic-ish animal companions. You have the idea of your soul that can be put into like a companion that you could then, almost like a druid, you could have an animal companion. You could have that lost, which then causes problems with you. You have world traveling, people moving in between worlds. You have this semi-church religious order that thinks they're doing the right thing, but they're not. I think you could mine that for some really interesting role play opportunities, I think.
I'm gonna add an answer. I'm gonna say Animorphs because was that series for me. It probably came out obviously when you were an adult, but when I was 10 or 11 or 12 back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Animorphs was a series that totally changed my brain too, because that was a series that it was a kids series, not even like a YA series. It was like a kids series. And it dealt with some really heavy crap like mind control, body horror, what does it mean to be a human, all that kind of stuff. And it had a very similar ending that totally affected me too, where I'm going to spoil the end of Animorphs, sorry. You had your chance to read it. Basically, half of the there's like 5 main characters, like all high schoolers or middle schoolers, and like half of them get torn apart in hyperspace and die, and half of them are left as like mentally like affected by what happens. And then it ends with a blurb from the author being like, hey, this is what war is like, kids. This is what it does to people. And if you don't want that to happen, you should go vote and get your voice heard in the world. And it's
Wow.
like, woof, like that blindsided me as a kid. But I mean, like, I get where she's coming from now.
Socialist propaganda.
Yeah, I know. Sneaking in your Animorphs books. So it looks like not another Nathan asks, where do you see RPGs going in the future? I think this is a really interesting question because RPGs fundamentally, the way they work when it comes to human and game interfacing really hasn't changed in like 20, 30 years. Do you have any thoughts about this?
So I'm probably not in any way the right person to answer this question. But I think that what I'm seeing in my Twitter sphere, which again is a small slice of RPG related Twitter, is I feel like there's a push, or I should say there's a split. A lot of people seem to be moving more and more towards theater of the mind. It's free-form gameplay. You don't have to do a lot of prep. It minimizes that. Anyone can basically play. You don't have to have the computer or anything like that. So I feel like we're probably going to keep moving that way. And then you have these like one-page RPGs, the 200-word RPGs that are very usually rules light. They're basically LARPs with a dice mechanic added in just to make it a game. So
Right.
I feel like we're going to keep moving that way. And I think we're going to get more and more hybrid LARP type RPGs for the people who enjoy that.
I hope so.
But I think the other side, we're going to move more and more into technology like that new Pokemon app where we're going to have augmented reality. Don't think we're going to get to the holodeck anytime soon where we have virtual reality, but we're going to start having augmented reality where you're going to be at a table and you're going to see like the 3D chess in Star Wars. You're going to see the monsters moving like through your phone or through Google Glasses or something, and it's going to make it a more of an immersive virtual game, digital game with that technology as it's emerging. I think we'll get there way before we'll get to actual headset on VR. But I could be wrong because there's that new Star Wars thing. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I have. Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, so a couple of the podcasts I listen to, they have done that for like their shows, and basically you put on the goggles, you put on a backpack, and you're in Star Wars, and you can look over and see your buddy who's with you, and you're going through and you're shooting stormtroopers in the face, and you can't see, so you don't know if you're walking 30 feet or 4 feet because everything's moving, but it's obviously not holodeck, but it's really immersive virtual reality, so it's there. I just don't know when it'll move into gaming because it's such a niche luxury type of thing.
Right. Like that's not something you can take on a camping trip with you and play if you're in the Boy Scouts or whatever,
Right. And I imagine it'll first be taken by the military for combat simulations. It will probably then move into mental health where people, just like in Iron Man or Avengers 7, whatever it was, when Tony's like, he was able to recreate his memories to help, work through his issues. I could see that would be a great way to do that. And I think gaming is like way down the line.
I think so too. If I had to predict something a little bit more immediate than that, I think that Roll20 is the biggest thing that has changed the industry in the past 10 or 15 years, in my opinion, and just the ability for everybody to be able to play digitally. And I think you're going to start to see more companies make games designed to be played digitally. Like this game isn't even, not that it's not playable at a tabletop or something like that, because that's sort of how it goes now, where people will have tabletop games and they will import them into Roll20, set up the rules, set up the dice, set up the character sheet, their macros, and then play with their friends virtually. I think that we're going to start seeing the opposite of that. And I think we're going to start seeing games that are designed to be played digitally, because anybody can look up the numbers of the people who play on Roll20 and just say, 100,000 people play D&D today, and I think that that's a huge market for people who want to do that. I know if somebody gave me like $5 million and told me to make an RPG, that's what I'd do. So that's my answer. I think we're going to see a lot more stuff designed direct to tabletop.
So I think that's interesting. I don't know if you saw this. I think it was today. Rodney Thompson, who is the designer of Dust City Outlaws, which is a new game he recently released, was talking about the fact that people had asked him, like, why are we not seeing more conversation about your game? Like, why aren't we seeing people playing it on streams? And he doesn't have an answer. He's thinking through the question, but he thought, my game has a lot of physical components. There's a lot of chits and tiles and stuff. And I agree that is prohibitive to playing in a lot of actual play streams.
Right.
Again, we are by far not the most technically savvy, network or show, but we got camera set up. Like when we try to move the cameras to show things like we do our board game nights, it's a fiasco every time trying to get people to be able to see what's going on. So if you don't have a setup that will let you display those, chits and tiles and that kind of thing, then you have to, as the person on the stream, overly explain every time what you're doing, which is not, for like a learning how to play, sure, but from like an entertaining campaign standpoint, I think you're going to cut it out in post, or people are going to watch.
Yeah, if you look at Geek and Sundry's like tabletop series, like that's what they do. They play a 4-hour game but edit it down into a 15-minute video, and it's like that's what you have to do. And I if I were a savvy designer 20 years from now, what I would do is I would say, okay, here is my game. It works completely digitally. Here's all the PDFs. It plugs into Roll20. Hey, streamers and actual play streamers, here's a package. Here's a pre-made overlay that you can show the stats of what's going on in the game to your viewers. Yep. I think that would be a really savvy thing to do by someone who is, again, much smarter than me.
Yep. I like to say I'm more of an idea man.
Me and my friends talk about this all the time. Like one of my friends, he works for a video game company that is here in Chicago, and I'm like, hey, I had this idea. If you ever need an ideas guy, let me know. It's like an inside joke because it's like everybody's an ideas guy.
Yeah, but like at my previous job, I actually was somewhat positively known for that. I could come up with these crazy ideas and these new programs and plans. I was terrible at implementing them, but I could come up with a good one. So yeah, same way.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see what else is going on Twitch.
So we got Shadow of the Cabal, which
I think it's Dakota.
Okay. What is the best Gumshoe?
Of the two Gumshoe games I've played, I like Knights Black Agents better because it's proactive instead of reactive. That's my answer. I have Bubble Gumshoe sitting right over there that I got at a Catacon that I have not played yet. So that's shame on me. Yeah. Is yours signed by Ken Hite, who put Veronica Mars quotes in it though?
No, but oh my God, I love Veronica. I literally bought this because it was like, this is Veronica Mars, the RPG. And I'm like, I am in because I love Veronica Mars. I think it is a tragedy that show did not get any more love and attention in seasons. And
I'm hiding my girlfriend's name, who it was addressed to.
Oh, okay.
He said a long time ago we used to be friends.
Thanks, Ken Hite. Yeah. So I bought this. I think I got it at Gen Con a year or two ago. Have never played it. Will probably never play it. I don't own Knights Black. It's hard to say. There's an S in a weird place. Knights Black Agents.
Title. Yeah.
But I played it once and I did not have fun. But I think that was the DM. They had not run the system before. It was their first time.
Gotcha.
And I've talked about it before. I don't need to rehash it. There were some issues with players at the table, blah, blah, blah. But I think I would be more into the teen detective than I am vampires. So I would lean towards Bubble Gumshoe with a 1-0 experience currently.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, that's what we're excited about. Short Manian 444. This is a question for you because I don't know anything about Marvel stuff. What system would be the best if you're trying to recreate a Marvel last act cinematic battle? So imagining like the end of Avengers, what system would you play that scene in?
It's got to be something that is so rules light that you don't have to worry about that. It has to be something that's more about drama. So I want to say the drama system, even though I don't actually know a whole lot about it. But I know that is a system where you basically gain drama through role play that you can then spend as a resource. And so by losing early, you gain resources to win. And if you win early, then you're short on resources late. And I feel like that would be a good system for a very role play heavy. Okay, we've lost till now. Now's the moment for us to rise up like good heroes and win at the end and spend those drama tokens with just like a very role play heavy narration.
I will have to believe you on that because I am not the Marvel guy, but I am in the presence of one. Awesome. So Pagetish, who is a follower of Shadow of the Cabal, they mention after doing years of pretty decompressed character-focused stuff, and now I'm finding that I can barely run a complete thing in under 4 or 5 hours. Do y'all have any good tips for helping guide players into faster play? This is a deep topic, I feel like.
It is. I will say, New York Trader, I'll come back to your question in a minute because he did clarify about the podcast question earlier, so I'll circle back to that. So I somewhat feel the same way. Like I have found just in life, I am not a concise person, as anyone who listens to our show knows. So I am not very good at running one-shots generally because I over plan. There's so much to do, and then at the end I'm like having to rush and wrap up, and gets an unsatisfying conclusion because it does, like, we didn't quite get where we needed to go to make it make sense. But I don't know that it's ever because of the players necessarily being slow as much as it is me. I don't think I'm great at pacing, but but the thing that I have found, I've been doing more and more because I am running more and more one shots, is I will take the lead a lot more as a DM. Like I used to be the person literally would just sit back and let the players talk for an hour if that's what it took for them to decide to go right or left. Because I enjoy that. I enjoy them talking to each other, especially if it's in character. But even though if they're going back through and like, well, we learned this and we learned that and I don't know, and like I enjoyed that from a spectator standpoint. Now I'm like, okay, you got two doors, you got left and right. Tom already said that he wants to go right. Sarah says she wants to go left. There's noise coming from the left. If you don't want to fight something, you probably should go right. What do you do? And I'll summation and force them to make a decision so that we'll get to the next thing.
I think that is an awesome way to do it. I think that like running certain games, I think makes that better too. One of the things I do like about Night's Black Agents is that it has a guide for GMs and for players. There's so many books that have GM advice, but there's so few books that have player advice. It's like, here's one sheet of paper that you should keep with you and keep in mind as a player. And one of the principles in that game is, if you are ever going more than one hypothetical deep in a plan, you need to get more information.
My gosh, I've gone like 7. I'm like Inception, and my gosh,
especially for like a heist game, it's like, oh, well, what if we go through the door? And then we go to the door afterwards and there's security pass there. We don't know what to do. It's like, well, clearly you could fart around in circles and talk about this all day, or you could, get your feet on the ground, go out there, get information, come back, make a plan. And it's a very proactive way to do it. So I loved your advice, Michael, but I will just add the addendum that if it's a slowdown specifically due to like players wanting to over plan, look up the Bucharest rules from Night's Black Agents. And if you can't find those, let me know and I can show them to you. But it's basically a list of those like 5 or 6 principles. It's like, put it in gear, get information, get in, get out, have an exit plan. And if that's the type of thing that your game could benefit from, it's really helped me with every other game I've played afterwards.
So the other thing I would mention there too is just when you're prepping for your one shots, have a beginning, have a middle, have an end. I've heard described it's like a dinosaur, like a brontosaurus. You start with a very narrow, they can only go 1 or 2 places. And then it branches out and there's this big wide space where they can go in a lot of different ways, but it's all going to end back at the tail, which then leads them to the finale.
Yep.
So you have a very directed opening scene, gives them a couple things that they might want to do. They're going to do 1 or 2 of them, and that's going to get them to the end no matter what, so that you can have your arc and you can complete it in your time. And then figure out how long it's taking you to do stuff. Like, are you taking too long to narrate, like setting the scene? Is it just combat that's taking forever? Maybe you do 1 less combat. I know there's kind of a typical role play, fight, role play, fight, role play, finale. Maybe you skip the one in the middle or the one at the beginning, and
or when you're 2/3 of the way through the combat, you know which way it's going to go. Just say, okay, let's narrate how this ends. Yeah. Yep. One last thing I will say, specifically if you're doing one shots, I don't make one shots anymore that don't have a timer on them in game. So like Holy Matrimony, which is the L5R adventure that I run at conventions and for people as a one shot, that story has basically a 36 to 48 hour timer on it, and everything that the players do takes time. So I will be reminding them, I'm like, okay, well, you want to go talk to this person? Okay, it's probably mid-afternoon now. Oh, you're done talking to them? It's probably late afternoon now, getting to dinner time. So by sort of keeping the train rolling and keeping that momentum moving forward and making sure that decisions and actions they take matter and take time, and they know that something nebulously bad is going to happen if they don't figure it out soon, it not only puts the pressure on them, but it also forces them to make interesting decisions because time means everything.
All right, very, very cool. So swinging back to New York Tater, he wanted to clarify that when he asked the question about our first podcast, he didn't necessarily mean the first episode, but just the first time doing any podcast.
Oh, yeah. I was on a podcast before this several years ago, just talking with some friends about gaming stuff. And it was also near the height of my arc of social anxiety. So it was awful and I hated it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it again. I did like 3 episodes and I'm like, this is not for me. And then I stopped for like 6 years until I found something that I could blab about all day, which is role playing games.
So I think this is going to sound awful, but trust me, I'm couching this in self-loathing. I was surprised at how good I was at it initially. Okay, because what I mean is like this isn't something I'm used to doing, and having a conversation with Evan and trying to pull out details and make him feel comfortable and kind of almost like an interviewer in a way. Going back and listening to those episodes kind of recently, it's like we had a very good rapport very early on. We didn't have like a structure necessarily, but everything seemed to flow really well, which editing helps. But I'm going to couch that because I literally hate the sound of my own voice. Like I am very.
We all hate it too.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. I'm very self-conscious about my voice. I joke all the time because that's what you do. You make fun of it before someone else can. I hate the way my accent. I hate the way that I know all these words and I can't pronounce them. I hate that I mumble at times. I hate that I talk really fast when I get nervous. Everything about the way I talk, I literally hate. And having to edit myself over and over and over is mind-numbingly crushing sometimes. But luckily, I'm the one that edits, so I can make me sound a lot better than I actually do. And I think that's the only reason I can survive it.
Yeah. I got over. I like podcasting too. Obviously, I got over the self-loathing like 3 or 4 edits in, but definitely early on. I was like, God, this is awful. No one wants to listen to this. I hate myself. Who is this person? It's not me. You have like that weird disconnect, but I got over it. And then when Dakota started editing these episodes for Knights Black Agents, he went through the exact same mark. He's like, I can't do this. I sound awful. It's like, it's fine. Mm-hmm. We've already played like 50 sessions with you, dude. It's okay. You just hate your voice. You'll get over it in like 2 weeks. You'll be fine. So yeah, that's both very interesting takes. I just want to make one shout out. Game Master's Vault is mentioning the Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars trilogy. I agree. Those books are phenomenal. If you like hard sci-fi at all, you should read them. I read those again when I was pretty young, probably in middle school or high school. They're awesome. And they would make a great RPG setting.
Oh, nice. So I was just going to circle back around one more time to like the editing thing of my voice, that I very rarely will listen to an episode if I didn't edit it. Like if I'm on a show, someone else's show, or a guest or that kind of thing, I will almost never listen because I wasn't able to control how I sound, and it will drive me insane. And probably the thing that most people have ever listened to is the L5R one shot that we did on One Shot, and I cringe every time I hear myself try to say Daigotsu Jin. I still can't do it because it's Daigotsu, and if for some reason saying goat doesn't make sense to me. I'm always like, it can't be goat, so I go to got. So it sounds weird. If I edited that, I would have redubbed myself saying that every time. You never would have heard me going Daigotsu Jin because I fucking hate it.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, Jim pronounced a bunch of stuff wrong too. Now that I've steeped myself in that lore.
Well, it's one thing to pronounce it wrong, like incorrectly. It's another to not be able to say the word because you're a moron.
No, I mean we've been doing some planning for our next L5R game, and I've been looking at like a list of like provinces in the world. I'm like, okay, maybe our game could be set in this one or this one or this one, and we decided one was absolutely perfect for us, except the name of the province was literally like Wakai Iai Kai Village, and it's like we're just not going to be saying that every episode, so no thanks.
Never going to get there. So it looks like Game Master Vault had a question too, well, more of a comment about not being able to get into podcasts. They're too likely to try to multitask and then they miss things. So it's like when you're reading and you realize you haven't looked at a word and you have to go back and read a page. So they're more likely to do Twitch and YouTube because it allows them to focus more. Totally get it. I was actually just talking about this yesterday. At my job now, I'm in a cubicle most of the day. So I will alternate between listening to several hours of podcasts to listening to music. And I haven't figured out what it is, if it's me, if it's the particular show, but some days I can listen to podcasts and work fine. And other days I cannot type and listen to the words, and so I have to switch to music. I don't know why it is, but yeah, some shows I can multitask and listen to, and some I can't.
Yeah, for me, it just kind of depends on how brainless it is what I'm doing. If I'm just doing data entry or something at work, I can put on a podcast. Or if I'm just like playing Overwatch online, I don't need to hear really many audio cues or anything, and I'm not listening to dialogue, I can put a podcast on. But if I'm obviously trying to read or trying to have a conversation with somebody at the same time, yeah, I'd rather just put on music. So I'm with you. It comes and goes, and whatever's for you is fine.
Yep. So it looks like I'm pretty far behind on the comments here. So Notorious GMD had said earlier, Bioshock would have been their suggestion for an RPG setting. If it actually captured the experience, it would be amazing.
The first homebrew thing I think I ever did was probably in 2005, or no, I guess Bioshock came out in 2007. It's probably in 2007 or 2008. I tried to homebrew my own Bioshock system in D20. It never made it off the Microsoft Word document, and it was probably awful. So there you go. I'm with you. That was one of my earliest needs.
Yeah, so Game Master Vault also mentioned Robert A. Heinlein books. I don't know if that was the Mars you were talking about.
No, he did like Starship Troopers and all those. But yeah, also very good sci-fi.
New York Tater mentioned Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan novels.
Knights Black Agents is the game for you. That is like, it is very Tom Clancy.
Are
you looking for another question?
Yeah.
Okay, so Shortmanian also asks, what was your longest, most continuous campaign? How long did you play? What system was it? Did you have to take breaks to prevent burnout? Or was the system and campaign so awesome that you could still play it today? I know my answer. What was your answer? I don't actually know too much about your gaming history.
So I think I've covered this before. So my longest continuous campaign was a game where I rotated DMs. I've talked about this several times on the podcast. When I was in Cleveland, I had a very dedicated group. Most of us, we were all like late 20s, early 30s professionals. Most of us had a spouse, but maybe not kids yet. So we met like every Saturday for like maybe 3 years. It was a very long time. And we played, I mean, obviously sometimes we would miss, but it wasn't like my regular games where we play 4 months and then it dies for 5 months and we try to figure something else out. But we played in a game where we rotated DMs. It was called the Brotherhood of Ken, but Ken was spelled Keun for some reason. And the idea was, one of the other gentlemen had come up with the idea is we were all mercenaries in this really righteous, goody two-shoes sort of group. And so that's how we managed to rotate. One of us would run basically like a one-shot, maybe a two-shot, and then that adventure would be over. Next person would step in. It made sense for the characters to change on this mission, kind of like XCOM in a way. Yep. And then we would go off and we would have that mission and we would, go on and so forth. And it basically, it started to, actually, if I remember correctly, it broke down when someone introduced a deck of many things. One of the many times,
as all campaigns do.
That's what I've answered that question on Twitter before or Facebook. Like, when should I, introduce deck of many things? Like when you're ready for the campaign to end.
Correct.
Because that's what happens. We tried to salvage it by jumping 7 years into the future. Did not work.
Nope.
That campaign died, and then I started a new game, which was the first iteration of Dark Discovery, which is the one that was been a patron game for a very long time, which just recently died. It was the first time I ran sort of that game, and then that's when I moved. So I was like 2 or 3 months into it. I'm like, all right, people, I'm leaving.
What system was that in? Was that 3.5?
That was 3.5.
Yeah. Do you still keep in touch with any of those guys or game with them at all, or is it kind of just like a convenience thing?
Well, if Roll20 was still around, or had been around, I should say, when that happened, we probably would have. But unfortunately, we kind of fell apart. I have kids now. There's one of them that I do still, like, every now and then I'll email and chat. I've tried to get him to come to a Catacon every year, and it's never worked out. He now has 2 kids as well, so it's probably never going to work out. But because, again, we're getting way into Michael territory here. I grew up with 3 best friends. Mm-hmm. We were inseparable. We did everything together. Like, there was just, if you saw one of us, the other 3 were always there. And if they weren't there, something was wrong. Mm-hmm. And this was like Stand By Me territory. Like, we were inseparable. Yeah. And I've said for years, I have 3 friends and I have acquaintances, because I was friends with those dudes. And even to this day, which I don't speak to them that often, if one of them called me like right now and said, "Hey, dude, I need you," I would get up and leave, and I'd figure out why on the way there.
Sure.
But Rob, who I met in Cleveland, is probably the first person that's really cracked that. I loved Rob. He was he fit my personality perfectly. My wife loves him as well. Like we both like, I miss Rob every now and then because I wish Rob was in my life more. Sadly, Rob is not in my life more.
Yeah. I mean, that just happens with life and being an adult too. Like there's the saying too about like when you're going through college, like between the ages of 18 and 22, you will meet your best friends in the world for 6 months and then move on. And like, you know, you have to move at the speed of the rest of your life. Unfortunately, we can't all move at the speed of tabletop groups, but we try.
So I'd say the longest one was either Made Men or Dark Discovery, both of which ended. But Made Men, at least I had ability to sort of wrap up into a semi-coherent ending. Dark Discovery just died in the middle. And if I had one I wanted to revisit, it would be A New World. I would love to be able to go back and spend more time in that world. And I know a lot of our listeners would like to as well, because it sucked the way that one ended.
I have two different answers to this one. The longest one, real life time that I've been a part of, is still ongoing. It is a Jade Regent game, which is a Pathfinder adventure path that we started in Pathfinder, changed it to 13th Age halfway through, and now we're playing it in D&D 5e. That one has been going on for close to 6 years on and off.
Oh, wow.
There was one year where we just straight up didn't play. So it's a very, very episodic thing. Like the GM, he moved to Japan for like 3 years, so that made playing difficult. So still ongoing. We play it once every couple months. It's a good time every time. So that one's going through. As far as like the longest, like session wise, Shadow of the Cabal was the longest one I did. It was 25 sessions, pretty much consecutively without any breaks in between. What system was it? That was an L5R 4th edition. You can listen to the whole thing if you go to shadowthecabal.com. And do we have to take breaks to prevent burnout? Yes, because L5R burns you the hell out if you play that every week. That was rough. And did you take breaks, and would you go back and play it today? No, I'm glad to be done with it. I loved it. I really, really, really loved it, but like, I don't need more of it. You know, it's like, oh, I had an entire birthday cake to myself. I don't need more. Let me digest this for a while. That's sort of how I feel about it.
Sitting on the couch with your shirt pulled up and you're sitting on your belly while you're eating it. Yeah, this is so good, but I feel so bad.
That was Shadow of the Cabal in a nutshell. No, I mean, it was a really, really great time, but I was ready to be done with it, and I think it's good that I feel lucky that I got a campaign that had an ending, and a good one at that. So I will count my blessings.
That's like a unicorn. Not everyone sees that.
Yep. It looks like we don't have many other questions, so I could go to my list unless you have something you want to talk about.
No, I think I'm good. What you got?
Cool. I got a quick one for us. This is a lightning round. What is the best die?
D12. Like, that's just a dumb question.
I'd agree with you. I think a D6, the good old D6, is a strong second place.
Oh, see, I hate D6s. D6s.
I thought this was going to be a quick one, but let's get into it.
D4s are the worst die.
Agreed. They
D6s
plop, they don't roll.
I'll give you D8s are the next worst. So D4s suck. D8s also suck. Then D6s suck. D10s also kind of suck. 12s are awesome. 20s are okay.
I can't be on this network anymore. I'm sorry. I will say that what D6s lack in like versatility and ease of roll, they make up for because they're everywhere. You can literally go anywhere and find them. And the first game that ripped off D&D, Tunnels and Trolls, the first thing the guy did is says, I don't have any of these dice. I'm going to make this game with D6s. And then he did. And Michael, who's smarter, you or the dude who made Tunnels and Trolls? So.
No comment. So let's get into it. So here's why I think D6s are terrible. Okay, so most D6s, again, if you don't get the custom ones, whatever, they're fairly small. I think these are what are they, 12 mm, 16 mm?
Yeah, 12. Yeah, I think so.
They're usually square. Like these in particular have rounded edges. So when you roll them, they don't really roll. They just kind of land.
They plop.
So then you get some that have these curved edges.
Michael, where did you get that die? It's so beautiful.
Well, this actually is not the Catacon die.
I was setting you up. Sorry.
Yeah. This is the Catacon die. I got the same color, but I can't see. I'm an old dude. I'm blind, so I have to get big dice with big numbers. Like I can't read dice anymore. I need clarity of dice facing is like the number one thing I look for in dice. It's not cool. Like I see those like the ones that look like elven. They got like little barbs coming off of them, like flowers.
Those are a nightmare to me.
I cannot see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So either they plunk or you have the rounded edges and they roll like crazy. So I need something. I don't know. D12 just works great.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. D12s are great because they're divisible by 2, 6, 4, and 3. So you could have almost a full gaming set of just D12s. Have you seen those ones where it's like, this is a D12 that's just a D4. It has 1 through 4 3 times.
This is a D6 twice. This is a D4 3 times.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to figure out how to make a D8 work. I'm thinking I'll just go 1 through 8 and then have to re-roll if it's higher than that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
D10s just ignore 11 and 12.
Yeah, that's a little bit more palatable. Yeah.
So I could just do the entire thing.
Yeah. Game Master's Vault said that Shadow of the Cabal is like the meat sweats of RPGs. Yeah, too real. And then New York Tater says, between the both of you, what are the 2 biggest recommendations / advice you would give to an older new player? So they want 2 pieces of advice each. So I assume that means somebody who is an older person who is new to playing.
That's how I would interpret it as well.
All right, you go first, and I'll do one.
So my first piece of advice is just do it. I know that sounds very simple, but if you're going to do it, commit. Don't be that person that's there, but they're like, I'm above this, and they're like snarky about everything, and they're so cool. Like if you're going to play, sit down with the goal of having fun and just get into it. Everyone's going to be making stupid voices. Everyone's going to be like, let's go, laddie, and talking in terrible accents. Just get into it. Because the thing is, if you have fun, it will be some of the most fun you've ever had. And if you don't, at least then you know this isn't for me. If you don't actually give it a shot and you're like, I didn't care for it. Well, you didn't commit. You didn't actually play the game. You just sat there all night. Then you really haven't made a choice, I don't think.
My advice will be a corollary to that, in that if you do play it and you don't have a good time, you should try to figure out why that is, because a lot of times people will just sort of bounce off each other, or it'll just be one bad night. Everyone has bad nights or bad sessions, and you should try to sort of analyze if it didn't work out, or if it's not something you enjoy as much as you thought you did, why, and if it'd be something to be easy to change, and say, hey, GM, I think it would be cool if we had an adventure in a desert. And then, okay, cool. You thought the setting was bad last time. Let's change it up. Give it a try. So that's my piece of advice. Okay, you have one more now.
So this is a bit old school. I think there are a lot of newer games, and DMs might poo-poo on this. Play a fighter. Or whatever the simplest character is for that system, so that you can just focus on a few things. You can really pay attention to the story. When it's your turn, you don't have to go through spell lists or try to decide what the best tactics are. Just like, I hit it with my sword. Roll that die. Get a big number and it works. Yay! And I think you build from there.
And then I will say, you're there to work with your group to tell a cool story, and you shouldn't think that anything is against you except the monsters of the adventure or whatever that you're playing. So everyone's there to have a good time and cooperate, and it's a cooperative thing, not a competitive thing, because I feel like an older person who has not played something like D&D might get the impression that there is a winner and there is a loser, or oh, I'm the one who survived and got away with all the treasure. He, I won D&D. And it's like, it's not how it works.
Yeah, I have had that conversation. Like, did you win? Yeah. Like someone would say, what'd you do? I played D&D last night. Did you win?
Yeah, that's what my mom said every time I came up from the basement between the ages of 11 and 19. So,
did you win? So this is a story from my college days. I played quite a lot in college. Again, with a small group of people. I had a person... Again, this is way into the weeds, but I had the best dorm life ever. I lived on a floor, like half the rooms were single rooms. So there were only like half as many people on the floor. We all kind of got along. We all knew each other. It was great. And like all my friends were all on the same floor. So we all lived like 15 feet from each other. And I had the room where everyone gathered to play stuff. So we played chess was my room, video games was my room, cards my room, D&D was my room. So people would come in and we would play. And I had one guy who... he was like our friend because we hung out with him, but he never played D&D. And he started sitting in the room, and he would just watch us play. And every now and then he would ask like a question, like, so why did you do that? Or how does this work? And eventually it got to the point where he was like trying to tell people, like, why don't you do this? And we literally just, as a group, were like, no, play. And we just made him a really super quick character. Here's your fighter. Just start playing. He loved it. Once he actually broke that seal and was willing to commit, he loved it. I also think he was a cheater because he would sit over by himself and he'd be that guy, be like, 21. That's some quick math there, buddy.
Yeah. I had a very similar experience this past weekend, actually. What you mentioned about sort of the spectator joining in. I think 2 weekends ago, my buddy, he ran Worldwide Wrestling for us for the first time, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse wrestling game. And we had a bunch of friends there, and one of them, we hang out with her a lot, and she has tried playing tabletop stuff with us, and she's just like, I like watching it. I don't think it's very fun to play for me personally. So we got into it, we got started playing, and then my buddy, who was the GM, he had her be his co-announcer. So he gave her a character. He says, okay, you're Lorraine, you're the prom queen of Tuscaloosa, Alabama Technical College. This is in the gymnasium there. You're the only person, and you're like an ex-weather woman or whatever. And she totally killed it. And like they would be doing like the announcer banter every time we did awesome wrestling moves. And now she's like, oh, maybe the plot twist is that I start wrestling, and I'm like, yes, we will figure this out. So it's an awesome, awesome way to get people involved.
Yeah, and I was going to tie that back because I kind of feel like that might be part of this explosion of streams. Is there is like it hooks you in, and then you're like, well, that's not what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you're playing in your head.
Right.
What would you have done? So, okay. And then I really think that's what's bringing so many people in, is that they're giving it a shot from an entertainment value, because everyone's talking about, like, okay, I'll watch Critical Role, or I'll watch whatever the other streamers are. And they're like, this is kind of cool, but I would do it differently. And I think that's where it starts.
And it's an accessibility thing now, too, because if you were sitting in your basement in 1988 and you said, oh, I heard about Dungeons & Dragons, what is that? I don't know. I'm going to go play basketball or whatever. But now you can literally type in Dungeons and Dragons on twitch.tv, and you can see 200 people playing it, and you can instantly get a sense of what it is. You can grok it very quickly. Yep. Awesome. I have some more lightning round questions if you want.
Yep. Lay it on me.
This one's from me. What is your favorite skill or attribute or like stat in any RPG you've played?
Oh, well. Oh, man.
I can go first if you want
some
time to think. Okay. So I have two. That's the reason I asked this question, because I wanted to answer it myself. I think that L5R 4th edition having the sincerity skill is genius, because it's the skill used to convince somebody that you're telling the truth, whether you are or not. So in so many games, telling the Duke, oh, we took care of the monsters and we gave all the treasure back to the people. Mm-hmm. In most games, they don't usually have you roll to tell the truth if somebody believes you, but in L5R, it's a very important thing. The second question, can we swear on this show? I forget. Is this like a PG-13?
Sort of.
Knights Black Agents has a skill called BS Detector.
Okay, yes.
Which is exactly what it sounds like. It's one of the most concise skills in the world, because I don't need to read the description. I see on my sheet that I have BS Detector, and I know, is this guy full of it? And you use that skill, and that's exactly what it is. So those are my two favorites.
So I'm having a really hard time, because I am that player that I play my charisma. I never play my characters. Unless I'm playing like a really dumb person, then I'll try to like be funny and dumb. But if I have a 12 to a 16 charisma, I'm just playing myself. I'm trying to be charming or witty or funny.
Because as everybody knows, you have a 16 charisma in real life.
I do. I mean, at least 16 with my racial adjustments. So it's hard. Like, I can't think of one. I don't know. Like, if you ask me spell, it's Grease. I'm with you there.
Grease is a good one.
Grease is the best spell in the game.
Grease is the word. I had a player once in a game I played with who he played a wizard that had no offensive spells. So he was doing lots of casting Grease and Pit and Tensor's Floating Disc, and it was an awful character to play with. But Grease is a good spell. Grease can do so much. It's just crazy how much a little lube can get you in life,
Yep. So I'm going to have to, I'll come back to that one. Maybe if I think of something, I'll come back to it.
Sure.
So someone I'll mention it in the chat about the dice. So if you did not hear or die or whatever the correct word there, yes, there was a problem with the Catacon 28 dice.
Arcadicon.
So this is what's so frustrating.
I couldn't help but make fun of you on Twitter about it. I'm sorry.
No, again, totally own it because so I sent them the new image and they did a proof and the proof said Arcadicon. And I'm like, it's not Arcadicon, it's a Catacon. And they're like, okay. So then we had to go through several iterations because, honestly, our logo isn't the best for that process. If you look at the dice, it's hard to etch them that small and it look clear. I think actually these probably look the best. The black. It's not zooming in.
I have that die in real life. It does look good.
So the white, which the new color is, I don't think it looks as crisp. So we went back and forth several times trying to make it work. And I even said, okay, so we've done several versions. I said, can you please send me one more proof? I just want to make sure that we're good. And the reason I did that literally was because I was looking for the R because I'm like, they might have effed this up and they're going to put R in there and I'm going to be so mad. So they sent me the proof. I looked at the proof. I was like, oh, we're good. No, there was an R. So I did everything right except pay attention to the thing. And it would be different like if there was two E's or if there was no O. No big deal.
It was like a Kangakong. That'd be one thing. Yeah.
But Arcadicon, I get so angry all the time because almost every time I try to promote this on, like I'll go to social media or Reddit, someone who doesn't know me, I'm like, a Catacon. They're always like, you misspelled Arcadicon. No, I didn't. I didn't misspell Arcadicon. There's no. And then to do that.
Believe me, I've heard so many people say, you should listen to Shadows of the Cabal. And I'm like, man, should have picked a different name way back when, huh? But, live and learn.
It is what it is. But. Yep. So I reordered new ones. There was some debate on whether I would just go with the ones that as were, but the company, even though it was my fault, did offer me a pretty nice discount. They felt bad for me, so I have more of them.
That's that high charisma in play, right?
Yeah, exactly. So as I like to say, I have 796 mint condition Arcadicon dice. I have 4 that are like new. They've only been rolled once. So we're gonna do some fun things, and I think we talked about on the Discord. We're gonna have a dice stacking competition. So we're gonna have it set up where anybody can come and stack as high as they want. We'll have some faculty member measure it or count it, and then at the end of the event, whoever has the highest stack will win like 400 of them. The other 400 I'll give away or sell, but someone's gonna win 400 of these dice.
It's very exciting.
Yes.
Hey, if you have a Shadowrun game coming up and you don't mind about typos,
yep,
it's for you. Do we have time for one more, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. This is one that somebody I saw on Reddit as well, but it kind of got me thinking. But I want to hear your answer. And I know we talked about Bubblegum Shoe for this, but what is one game that you've always wanted to play but haven't had the chance to yet?
Oh, God, there's so many. Probably, let me look over here.
I think you talked about Blue Rose once for a while too, right?
I really want to play Blue Rose, but I have played Fantasy Age, which is what it's based off of. So
right.
I would have to say pure never played it would be Mouse Guard.
Ooh, yeah. That's on my shelf too, right over there. I haven't played it yet either. I've read it a couple times, but
I will say, I'll twist the question a little bit. I've said this many times. I think reading the Fate Core book opened my eyes to it. Fundamentally changed the way I look at role-playing games. It has made me such a better DM, and I think it's amazing. But I have never played in a Fate game that lives up to the promise reading that book made. I would love to play Fate with someone who just really knew the system, with other players who really are into it, because I feel like Fate should be the game that I play all the time. It hits all the right buttons, but I have never played in a game that worked well. And I've played in the game with one of the designers. And I played in the game with Porter, our Fate Deadlands game, which was a great game, but I didn't think the mechanics added to them at all. So
do you, I mean, it sounds like you've had a lot of experience. Do you think that the way that your ideal version, do you think that can only exist on paper, or do you think that it can be played that way at a table, just not one that you've been to?
I think it can be played. I don't think I'm a good enough DM to run it that way, and I don't think I'm a good enough player to get there. But the idea, the promise that Fate Core made to me when I played it is that it would be almost universal role play, where you would say things and bring in these themes and the I can't remember the terminology right now,
The
but
aspects,
the
right?
aspects,
Yeah.
where they would just organically occur because you're playing. But in practice, it's like a board game. You're like, okay, well, I want to hit this one and this one, and it becomes very mechanical. And now I roll, but I didn't pass, so I'm going to add in the stunt.
Does the prospect of like, so I think it's a really interesting topic, because what you're saying is that you want to role play and for the mechanics to suddenly appear into that as you do it, as opposed to looking at the mechanics and trying to figure out a way to role play them, right?
Yeah.
Does it feel like it's backwards in that regard?
Yes,
for you?
I want to feel like the mechanics are not there. They're invisible until they're absolutely needed, and they're there the minimum amount of time they need to be there. And it feels like it's the other way around. It's like we're working on this, trying to make the dice work to have this couple second role play, and then we're back into the mechanics. It's like completely opposite of what I feel like it should be.
I have two things to say about that. One, that is the experience of everybody I've heard play Fate. So I don't know if your version of Fate can exist, because I've never played it, but it sounds to me like that every time. It's almost a very like meta-gamey game,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Not in a bad way, as in like I'm cheating the DM or I'm doing this, but it's like you have to be thinking about the game and how you're going to use the game to propel your actions. Second thing I'll say to that, Mouse Guard is almost exactly the same as that.
Yeah, I've heard, but I was wondering because I grew up reading and watching that Secrets of Nim cartoon, so I have a lot of love for talking mice fighting crows.
We should do a trial of it.
We should, but who would run it?
I'd pick it up. I'd run it. I have the book.
Okay.
You heard it here first.
I am down for that, because that's one of the games, like when I go to any convention, I have a short list of games that I try to get into, like top of my list. Mouse Guard is always one of them. There's only like 3 offerings at every convention. Never get into it. I would love to play that game.
Yeah. Short Manian says Bubblegum Shoe and Tales from the Loop, both games that I want to play as well. It sounds like we have 3 people here who want to play Bubblegum Shoe. Maybe we should just figure that out.
Yeah, again, if someone will play a game where I get to be someone in the Moronica Vars universe, I would love you forever.
You could play Moronica Vars.
Moronica Vars.
Moronica.
Moronica. I'm the cousin from Kentucky.
I will say my answer to this is I feel like the one big blind spot in like my RPG playing career that I haven't been able to hit is any of the World of Darkness games. Like I am super down to play like Vampire the Masquerade or Werewolf or Changeling or any of those, but I've just never had the chance to, because no one in my friend group I don't think has even played them. So if you are out there and you want to run Vampire the Masquerade for me, there's a new edition coming out. So I think I'm just going to check that out when it comes out and just run it myself, because my advice is to be the games that you want to see in the world.
That's right.
Yep.
So Short Mania 444 brought up Tales from the Loop. So I want to talk a little bit about this one.
Sure.
When I heard about this game, I was infatuated with it. I love Stranger Things. I love the kids on bike type of movies. Again, that's the ones I grew up with, like E.T., Goonies, The Explorers. So I was all in. I didn't get into the Kickstarter. I think I missed it for some reason. So I ended up buying the game after it was available on Amazon. I do not like that system.
Interesting.
At all. I love the idea that it presents, but I don't like the world it presents it in. And also, I don't like the setting, and I don't like the system, but I like the idea of that you're a kid, there's something going on in your town, and you need to figure it out. So the Origins, I played a new game. It's called Kids on Bikes.
Yeah.
Which is literally someone, either a genius or an a-hole, however you want to view it. Someone's like, you know what? Stranger Things is cool. Let's make Stranger Things the RPG, because it is literally Stranger Things the RPG.
Yeah.
Because it comes with a special supernatural character that the whole party plays. So you create your 11, and everyone participates in how that one's played. So I got to test that out. I didn't like the system.
Ooh.
I really liked it. Has a lot of like, there's like a template that you go through to create your character, and it's like you have to, like you pick another character, and you have to decide if you want to have a positive or a negative relation, and you roll a d20, and it will say, like, there's 2 lists, and it'll say like, why are they your friends? So it's like these questions you have to answer, like why don't you like them, or how do they, screw up your trust, or why do you love them, whatever. So I really enjoyed that. I liked some of the template because, again, it's basically Stranger Things, the RPG.
Sure.
But it is just such a simple system, and I don't know why. I like simple, but essentially you have 6 stats. One's a D4, one's a D6, one's a D8, one's a D10, one's a D12, one's a D20. That's it. So whichever one you're good at's a D20, whichever one you sucks at a D4. And then there's this whole, like, you set DCs based off of what you're doing. That's the game. So if you suck at it, you're likely to get to a 7 with a D4, though they do explode like in Savage Worlds. So you can get there, but it kind of feels like it's always rewarded me for doing what I'm best at.
Yeah.
And I like that. If I need to do what I'm good at, I should be successful. But I want to do the things that make the game more interesting, not make it easier.
Yeah. So, and that's something that like all games are kind of struggling with in some regards too. So I don't begrudge them too much, but that's disappointing. You know what? I bet you could run a pretty killer Stranger Things game in Bubblegum Shoe.
Maybe. I haven't dove enough into it to really know. I think they have a free version that I got to bring home with me.
I mean, it's an investigative game about being a kid figuring out a mystery. Yeah.
Yeah. So they gave us a little pamphlet. It's like a really simple version of the rules. So I don't know. I very excited about it. I liked the story that we played. It was fun. We played like a 2-hour demo. Half an hour was creating the characters. But I walked away going, again, the concept is brilliant. The execution lackluster. Yeah.
And I mean, that is just goes to confirm that system and setting kind of need to gel with each other and to make something interesting. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd all be playing GURPS, and nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
I'm going to get so many haters. I'm so sorry.
People who like GURPS aren't watching our stream. We pissed them off 5.5 years ago. All right, so we'll throw it out to chat one more time. If anyone listening still has any questions, we'll gladly answer them. While we're waiting for chat to catch up, Tanner, where can people find you on the internets?
You can find me on the Shadow of the Cabal podcast. I'm currently a player in a campaign right now. We are playing Knights Black Agents, the game I've probably brought up like 6 times by now. You can go to shadowofthecabal.com and look at our very beautiful website, or you can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/SOTCpod. And our podcast should be available pretty much wherever you find podcasts. What about you, Michael?
So again, you can find me anywhere at the RPG Academy. If you search for that and you find something that's not me, let me know, because it should be me.
We'll take them out. We'll deal with them.
Exactly. We'll deal with them. So funny, there actually was a website for a while. I'll tell you about this. And it might even still be around, but it doesn't look like it's being updated. It's called the RPG Academy, but it's a video game review site. But none of the video games they reviewed were RPGs. They were all like action shooters. So I have no idea why they chose that name.
We need to send our guys after them.
Okay, so here's the thing. I was going to say, hey, I don't know if you're aware, there's this thing. Their website has no contact information. There's no Twitter that I can find. There's no Facebook. There's no email contact. So I just kept, like, every couple months I would check the website. It was never getting updated. So I kind of felt like, well, I guess it doesn't matter. But I was like, dude.
Yeah.
Dudettes, whatever.
Domain hogs.
Yeah.
No good.
Jerks.
Yeah.
And then I'm still working on my module sort of thing that I'm still looking at doing a Kickstarter early next year. The Dragon's Spine. I'm running it again at Gen Con. I've run it at Origins. I've run it at Catacon last couple of years. So I've run it like 7 or 8 times at different conventions. I want it to be a directed adventure with audio supplements. As you were saying, I want to have a player's guide. So whatever player you play will have like a little 1-sheet mechanical cheat sheet, as well as here's some suggestions on how you roleplay this character in this particular game. So I'm working on it. I got a first draft of everything, and I just got to go through and do the hard work, which I don't like doing. So it might sit on that computer for a while.
It's totally cool. And you mentioned going to cons a couple times. You are going to Gen Con, correct? That is in a couple short weeks.
4 weeks, I think, or right around August 1st.
4 or 5. Yeah.
So very much looking forward to that. It is one of the highlights of my year every year.
Are you doing anything special there?
So I'm running a panel with Victoria from the Broadswords and Shane from Total Party Thrill. Very excited. I set up for 150. Right now we have 138 people signed up, which is insane.
That's awesome.
I'm very nervous about that. Again, my voice, not happy about it, but I'm excited about the content. I think it'll be a good time. I'm running the Dragon Spine. I got to play. I'm playing in a Fantasy Age game, which is one of the ones on my list. I'm playing in Basic Fantasy, which is another one. It really wasn't high on the list, but it's a game I've never played before. Playing High Plains Samurai, which sounds awesome. Don't know anything about it, but I saw the name. Like, that sounds cool. I'm on that
sounds precisely designed to target me. So you'll have to tell me how that is.
I'm getting to play 10 Candles with Taylor. He's going to run it for myself. And I think Danny Neary and then Michael Waldschlager are going to be also players. I don't know if we have a fourth yet.
That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. But here's what I'm working on right now. I found this event and I really want to do it. It costs $84, which sucks, but I'll pay it. 4 people. They pick you up in a limo and they drive you to an escape room. You do an escape room, then you have a brunch, then you do a second escape room, and then they bring you back. It starts at 7:30 on Saturday, 7:30 to 12. I currently have that block open. But I will only do it if I can get other 3 people that I know. I don't want to do this with strangers.
84, that's a pretty good deal.
I mean, it's what you would cost you for 2 escape rooms and lunch. Like, it's not extravagant. It's just $84 for one event at Gen Con is kind of...
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, Short Mania says the limo is the escape room. They kidnap you. Which actually would be pretty awesome.
Next level.
So if anyone else is listening, Saturday morning, 7:30 to 12, I need 3 other people to commit, and then I will absolutely jump in.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to be locked in a room with someone with a 16 charisma? Come on.
Absolutely. And Short Mania mentioned Adventure Zone is playing Monsters of the Week. I have played that as well.
As have I.
I played it was basically like a Supernatural, the TV show version, which I also like. Though I do think Scooby would be a good version for that. So I don't know. Brad, part of the network on our show, the RPG Academy proper, he runs that. That's like his con game that he runs.
Yeah, it's a good one. I had recently, about a month or 2 ago, a first-time GM ran that game for us. We were at the Rhinelander, Wisconsin Hodag Festival hunting down a Hodag, so you know it was good.
Nice. Oh, I got to play Jason Statham's Something Vacation and Honey Heist.
Yeah. Grant Howitt.
Yeah, that was interesting. I played a grizzly bear who was incompetent. He was a hacker. But we all had bear paws, so our hacking was just hitting things until it opened. We were at the Honey Festival, which was at a Maine fishing village. It was interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, sounds like a fun game.
Yeah, it was good. The Jason Statham probably was the more fun, but that one took longer than we thought. So we didn't have a whole lot of time for the Honey House we really had to get through. But yeah, the Jason Statham game was quite a hoot.
Yeah, Jason Statham, huge fan of the network. So if you ever want to work together, we're here.
Absolutely, yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that will do it. Tanner, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Everyone in chat, thank you as always for joining us. It's such a better show when we got people.
Yeah, some great questions.
Yes. So hopefully the people listening in the future will enjoy those questions as well. And I kind of think I might want to start doing this like on the regular, like maybe not every month, but like every couple months, just throw a Q&A episode in.
Yeah, a little lightning round episode. So yeah, if you have those and there's burning things that you have on your mind that you think can be answered in less than an hour, save them up and drop them in chat when we do this. We'll try to announce them pretty ahead of time, a couple days, so you'll have some time to collate some questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and we'll see everyone do our awkward wave out.
Bye-bye.